Good Tuesday afternoon. We are live here for a severe weather update here across the state of Indiana. As you know, tonight has the potential to be quite significant across the state. We'll give it here a few minutes to let people join in here before we get started here with our severe weather update here. We will be live later this evening to cover severe weather coverage in detail from beginning to end on Indiana Weather Network, Indiana Weather Online. So do tune in for that here later this evening. We'll probably go live for severe weather coverage once storms get the fired. I do expect a tornado watch to be issued probably later this evening between 4 and 6 p.m. Probably. We may see that a little bit sooner depending on how things trend and evolve here later today. There is potential it may be a PDS watch too. That is something we're going to have to watch out for here later this evening. More details on that as we look at how data trends here this evening. A lot of moving parts here with this system. So got about 250 of you in here. We'll go ahead and get started here. The Storm Prediction Center over the last few minutes with their latest 16Z severe weather update. We have an upgrade across Northwest Indiana, Northern Illinois to moderate. That is a level 4 out of 5 on our severe weather categories. Areas in dark green is a marginal risk, which is a level 1 out of 5. Areas in yellow, which encompasses most of central Indiana, is a level 2 out of 5. It's a slight risk. Then as we go up into areas in orange here, this is a enhanced risk, which is a level 3 out of 5. And then we have a rare moderate risk across northern Illinois, northwest Indiana. This is a level 4 out of 5. This is a moderate risk. And mind you, this is a tornado-driven moderate risk. The Storm Prediction Center felt confident enough to issue a moderate risk due to the enhanced tornado parameters that we have here today across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana. So that is something we're going to have to keep an eye on over the next several hours here as we move throughout the evening. Let's look at the models here, and we'll go ahead and time it out here for you about what we expect here. This is the HRRR, which is a convection allowing model. Basically, it's a short-term model that we look at, give or take an hour to this. This model usually does a pretty good job. It can get you close, but it gives you a good general idea of kind of what the storm mode is and what we expect to see going into this evening. The radar may look different later on, but it gives you a pretty good idea about what to expect. Here we are at 2 p.m. here this afternoon, partly cloudy skies across Indiana, but we don't have to go much further before storms start to fire. We do expect storms to fire first in Illinois before moving into Indiana later this evening. This is 4 o'clock here this afternoon. Thunderstorms already firing across northern Illinois. We'll have to watch our warm front. South of the warm front is where storms have the best potential for tornadoes. North of the warm front, primarily a hail and wind risk north of that warm front. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Here we are at 5 p.m. You can see some pretty large thunderstorms across northeast Illinois towards the Juliet area south of Chicago. This is the long and south of our warm front. And you notice here how the HRRR, how this model and a lot of other of our models have really honed in on supercells. These are isolated thunderstorms with rotating updraft turned to mesocyclone, very large hail, and there's also a tornado potential here as well. So this is 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or now daylight time, rather. We are in daylight savings now. Here we are at 6 p.m. Couple isolated supercells possible in northwest Indiana. We'll have to watch these for tornadoes, but also hail around dinner time here this evening. So we could have a few thunderstorms early, but the main event comes after dark here tonight. So a few supercells possible after 4 p.m. here today, and then things really kick off after 8 o'clock. Here's 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Showers and thunderstorms all across northern Indiana, northern Illinois, and a lot of these are isolated. Depending on if they're north of the warm front or south of the warm front will determine if they're going to become surface-based. Those storms south of the warm front or on the warm front have the greatest potential for isolated tornadoes. And also very large hail. The atmosphere is very unstable here today. We could have hail as large as baseballs. That is possible here today across northern Indiana and northern Illinois, perhaps even a few stones reaching 3 inches in diameter. So extremely large hail, significant hail is possible here today outside of tornadoes. A few tornadoes could be strong, EF2 or greater possible across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana. Here we are at 10 p.m. here tonight. And as you notice, storms start out isolated. They start out as isolated supercells. These are the ones we're going to have to watch for very large hail, some of which could be significant, 3 inches diameter or greater, as well as tornadoes. Some of those could be strong as well across northern Indiana and northwest or northern Illinois. As we go into the overnight hours, storms kind of merge. They congeal a little bit. We call that growing upscale, where we could have a line of storms or kind of a messy complex move through northern Indiana along the warm front that could bring a damaging wind risk, a large hail risk, and a spin up tornado as well, possible with these as well, especially along the warm front near the Indiana Michigan border. This is 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. But you look here, the risk doesn't just end after dark. In fact, it continues overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. Here we are at 1 a.m. This is 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Messy complexes working their way across northern Indiana, primarily along and north of US 30. But we also have more storms starting to fire in Illinois by this time frame. And here we are at 4 a.m. This is overnight tonight, early tomorrow morning. Storms still working across northern Indiana, but we also have a line of storms starting to form across western Indiana and also central Illinois. These storms are associated with a cold front. They're actually out ahead of a cold front that'll be moving in tomorrow afternoon. Along this cold front, we could have showers and thunderstorms. All hazards are possible. However, by this point in time, by about 4 a.m., we transition from a high tornado risk into more of a damaging wind risk and hail risk. As these storms grow upscale into a line, we expect the tornado risk to go down, not zero. There is a tornado risk across the entire state, but it'll go down just a little bit. Spin up tornadoes possible, damaging winds, and hail would be the primary risks overnight tonight, especially from 3 a.m. through about 2 p.m. tomorrow. As we go into your morning commute, here's 6 a.m. Here's our line of storms. This could be what we call a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system. Basically, it's a line of thunderstorms associated with a cold front, and that's really what we're going to have overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Also, very heavy rainfall is likely across the state of Indiana. We actually have an elevated risk for flash flooding this evening into tomorrow due to our saturated soils in many areas. Rainfall rates could be quite heavy tonight into tomorrow. This is 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Our line of showers and thunderstorms moving across the state of Indiana. And here we are at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So mid-morning storms are mostly done across northern Indiana by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Southern Indiana still hanging on. That line could still be moving through southern Indiana. But look off to the north and west. This is tomorrow morning. Yes, that is snow. We will have some snow chances on the backside of this system. And here we are at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Our cold front moving through and storms still hanging on across southern Indiana. So the severe risk is for today and tomorrow. It shifts a little bit further south and east by tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow morning. East central Indiana, southern Indiana, damaging wind and hail risk as the primary hazards tomorrow across eastern Indiana and southern Indiana. Going back on timing it out here, we'll go ahead and talk about what hazards we're talking about here. Let's go ahead and show you what our instability is. When we talk about severe weather, we talk about ingredients and how we measure those ingredients. There's an acronym for that, and it's called SLIM, which stands for shear, lift, instability, and moisture. Those four things are the primary ingredients that we need to support severe weather. First is instability. Let's look at our instability here today, and we have a lot of instability. And in fact, the correct term with this would be juiced. The atmosphere is juiced here this afternoon across northern Indiana and especially northern Illinois. You can see the line though. There's a sharp cutoff on where instability is greatest and where there is no instability up near Rockford, Illinois, near the Wisconsin-Illinois border, as well north of I-94 in Michigan. South of I-94 in Michigan is kind of where our warm front is currently draped. Those of you watching from Gary, Indiana, it's cold right now. We had a lake breeze come through, which dropped temperatures from the 60s, now flirting with the 30s near the coast and shoreline of Lake Michigan. That is thanks to a pneumonia front associated with our boundary across northern Illinois. So where our warm front sets up, those storms that are south of the warm front have a lot of instability, but also a lot of moisture to work with as well. Go ahead and show you our dew points right now. It's humid if you go outside. Dew points are in the 60s across the states, and we could even have a few areas get close to 70 degrees in terms of dew points. That's really moist air for this time of year. But you can see our warm front situated across northern Illinois. It's just south of Gary, near LaPorte, moving up to the I-94 corridor in southern Michigan. Along and south of this warm front is where storms will have access to moisture, instability, and a lot of heat. So a lot of fuel for these storms to work with along and south of the warm front. All hazards are possible there as well. And we go ahead and show you our wind shear as well. We need wind shear to support tornadoes, which is the changing of wind direction and speed with height. We have that here today. I'll go ahead and show you our tornado parameters today across Indiana. You can see a pretty sharp cutoff. Again, north of the warm front, we don't have a lot of ingredients to really support a lot of tornadoes. North of the warm front, we don't have the instability or the moisture. Those storms south and along the warm front have the best potential to support tornadoes across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana, where you can see our tornado parameters are quite high. This is on a scale of 0 to 10, and our tornado parameters are pretty close to between a 5 and a 7 up here across northern Indiana, northwest Indiana, northern Illinois. And also going to have to watch southwest lower Michigan as well. Our warm front kind of curves around Lake Michigan and pulls north into lower Michigan along and south of I-94. So we can't rule out some severe weather across southern Michigan as well. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. So a lot of things to work with here over the next few hours or so. Again, the greatest chance for severe weather here today, 4 p.m. and after today. It's going to start in northwest Indiana between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. Then after midnight, that risk slowly moves south into central Indiana and southern Indiana after midnight. After that 1 to 3 a.m. time frame is when we start seeing storms really increase across central and southern Indiana. Here's a look at our hazards here today. High risk for tornadoes today across northwest Indiana and northern Illinois. This is a 4 out of 5 on our severe weather risk index. Damaging winds a little bit lower, but we could have some damaging winds to 60 to 70 miles per hour. We have a lot of wind shear, especially I think the damaging wind risk will go up overnight tonight as the tornado risk goes down. It'll evolve into more of a wind risk and a hail risk as we go into the early morning hours tomorrow. I think 1 a.m. through about 2 p.m. tomorrow is when the tornado risk will start to go down a little bit and the damaging wind risk will go up. So damaging winds 60 to 70 miles per hour, but we also have very large hail possible here today. We have a really favorable environment for very strong updrafts to support really large hail growth. Hailstones, greatest risk, northern Indiana, where we see those isolated supercells. They have the greatest risk for having the strongest updrafts to support very large hail, some of which could be significant. We could have baseball size hail today. Hailstones up to 3 inches possible across northwest Indiana and northern Illinois. We also have a flood risk here today as well. A very heavy rainfall. Thunderstorms could move over the same areas again and again, which really promotes flash flooding. Rainfall rates could be 1 to 2 inches per hour, heavier amounts than thunderstorms. But where those thunderstorms move over the same areas again, we call that training. Just like a railroad train, how the cars move in a line over the same place over and over again. Same effect happens here with our thunderstorms. This could promote excessive rainfall, ponding, flash flooding, especially in areas that have already received heavy rainfall over the past 7 days or so. When talking about tornadoes, the area that we think has the greatest potential for tornadoes is highlighted in red here, northern Indiana. Really, where our warm front sets up, if it's north or south, will have the greatest potential for tornadoes. Areas on that warm front in south where there's isolated supercells can attach to that warm front. That's where our wind shear is maximized, and we just have better ingredients near that warm front. The further south you go, there's still a tornado risk. The tornado risk is not 0 across Indiana today, but it is a little bit lower the further south you go. Think of I-70 and south. And this is because isolated supercells are likely along US 30, US 24, northern Indiana. But as the risk evolves, storms grow upscale into a line. We call that QLCS, a squall line will move. And as this complex moves, the tornado risk is still there, but it's not as great as what it will be later this evening between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Overnight tonight, 1 to 4 a.m., as that line moves through, we transition from a tornado risk to more of a damaging wind risk and hail risk, which is why as storms move in here, we expect it to be more of a complex versus individual supercells. But the tornado risk is still there. We do have enough wind shear to support spin-up tornadoes across southern Indiana and central Indiana as well. But the highest risk would be areas in this hatched area. We've hatched it because we feel along the warm front, if a storm is able to remain isolated and remain on that warm front, not go north of the warm front, but remain on the warm front, it has the potential to unfortunately produce a very strong tornado. EF2 to EF3 tornadoes are possible today in northwest Indiana in areas highlighted in red here. Not out of the question at all. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and go back um, to our timing maps here for you, and we can go ahead and time it out one more time. Go ahead and answer some of your questions that you may have as well. It's going to be a very active night and a very long night tonight, and we'll be here for live severe weather coverage, probably starting around 5 to 6 p.m. tonight, depending on when storms fire, is when we'll decide to go live for coverage or not. When the storms get closer to Indiana, we'll start to go live for that and to have you covered from beginning to end. Here's a look at our current temperatures here across Indiana. Very cold along the Lake Michigan lakeshore, but you can clearly see where our warm front is situated, and storms along and south of that warm front have the greatest potential for severe weather, including tornadoes, some of which could unfortunately be strong here today. Let's go ahead and answer your questions here today. Have quite a few of you in here. We got Josh in here. We got Nicole in here. Vicky's in here. Hannah, Kat. Great to see you guys in here. Thanks for following along. And hope to see you again for our live severe weather coverage in detail. We'll have you covered from beginning to end here later this evening across Indiana. A lot of questions about locations here. Go ahead and answer that for you. Best way to do that is looking at the map here. Here's the latest from the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Areas in orange and red have the greatest risk for severe weather here today. Areas in red especially have the highest risk. This is a moderate risk. This is a tornado-driven upgrade by the Storm Prediction Center here about 30 minutes ago, around 16Z. They updated this. This is a moderate risk, which is a level 4 out of 5. High risk being the only level higher than a moderate risk. So this is a very high risk. And this is a tornado-driven risk as well. Go ahead and show you the tornado risk here today by the Storm Prediction Center. Areas in red, this is where a moderate risk is here in the state of Indiana. We do have a yellow risk, which extends all the way from Fort Wayne to Angola, even along and south of I-94 in Michigan for tornadoes. But you notice these different little lines. This is something new by the Storm Prediction Center this year. A hatched area, such as what you see right here where the lines are moving to the northeast, which encompasses this entire zone. Basically, what these lines mean is the greatest or strongest tornado possible that the atmosphere could produce via the ingredients that we have. So kind of a low risk for a tornado, areas in green, with the highest risk up here in yellow and red. This hatched area up here where you see the lines going from southeast to northwest, stretching from Fort Wayne, Indiana, over to Peoria, Illinois. This is where the Storm Prediction Center thinks we could have a significant tornado possible, EF2 to EF3 tornado possible, anywhere and where you see this hatched area stretching from Fort Wayne, Indiana, South Bend, Valparaiso, Pontiac, Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. So a very elevated tornado risk here today across northern Indiana, with the highest risk being northwest Indiana and areas shaded in red. This is where we feel storms will be isolated. That's key. And remember, as they progress throughout the evening, they're going to grow upscale into a complex. The longer they stay isolated and near that warm front, that's where they're going to have the greatest potential for tornadoes, significant hail, and also damaging winds as well. So the entire state of Indiana is at risk for severe weather today and tonight, with the greatest risk being northwest of Kokomo, Indiana, across northwest Indiana. Areas in orange and red have the greatest risk for severe weather here today. We'll go ahead and go back to our forecast models here, and we'll go ahead and time it out for you one more time of what we expect for timing and also what the radar could look like later this evening as well. This is the afternoon run here of the HRRR model, which is a numerical model gives a pretty good general depiction of what we expect here this evening. Now, the radar may vary from this, but it gives you a good general idea of what storms will likely look like when they do fire later today. Here we are at 4 p.m., so here in a few hours, we do expect storms to fire across northern Illinois. They look kind of unorganized at this point. They're just getting started, but it doesn't take long for them to really grow and become quite significant. Here we are at 5 p.m. here this evening. Could have a few isolated storms, even a few supercells northeast Illinois from the Juliet area, stretching towards the Indiana-Illinois line. This is 5 p.m., 6 p.m. This model predicts a couple supercells possible around the Rensselaer area, across northwest Indiana. but it's conditional whether these storms will fire this early or not. Some guidance has been holding off until closer to 8 p.m. So we're going to have to see how this trends, if these storms are able to fire this early or not. Early or not, it doesn't matter. The atmosphere is juiced. It's really unstable, and it can support these storms if they are able to fire early across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana. Here we are at 8 p.m. here tonight. Sun's going down, so this risk will persist into the overnight hours where it is dark. So do not wait to see these tornadoes or the severe weather. Act immediately upon warnings being issued. Severe weather risks always escalate at night because we are limited by visibility. So do have a way to have multiple ways to receive warnings here tonight, whether that's a Midland NOAA weather radio, local news stations, stick it here with Indiana Weather Online, Indiana Weather Network. We'll be live here this evening covering these storms in detail at your exact locations as well in real time. We also have a lot of chasers out in the field here this evening as well, so we'll have plenty of eyes on the ground here for you across northern Indiana and northern Illinois. Here we are at 10 p.m. here tonight. Notice how these storms start out isolated, but as they move on, they start to grow upscale and in kind of a storm complex is what we expect here later this evening. As they do that, the tornado risk will start to evolve from this point on. This is 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You notice how our isolated storms are gone, at least on this model. They could hang around a little bit longer. We'll just have to see how that trends. On this model, they have storms growing upscale into a complex. This will shift the risk a little bit. The tornado risk by 1 a.m., 2 a.m., we think will go down just a little bit, but the damaging wind risk and hail risk will remain quite high. So the damaging wind risk and hail risk remain. The tornado risk starts to go down a little bit by this time, but we have plenty of wind shear to where we could have spin-up tornadoes possible across all of northern Indiana and across much of Indiana overnight tonight as well. Here we are at 4 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Southern Illinois now getting in on this complex of storms, moving into Indiana as well. You can see storms still going across northern Indiana, and this line is starting to form and moving across all of Indiana. Damaging winds, isolated tornadoes, and hail possible with this line here as well. As we go into tomorrow morning, here's 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. This line is still working its way across southeast Indiana, southern Indiana, still getting in on some damaging wind risk and perhaps a hail risk as well. But we're going to have to watch for additional storms tomorrow afternoon across southern Indiana. Storms could refire along the Ohio River towards Cincinnati, Louisville area, in Evansville tomorrow afternoon before they move out of the region and our cold front comes through by tomorrow afternoon. Damaging winds after about 3 to 4 a.m. once this line comes through. Damaging winds and hail would be the primary hazards here, but we can't have spin-up tornadoes possible anywhere in Indiana here tonight. We do have those parameters in place, but we do think damaging winds and hail would be the main hazards here as we go into tomorrow morning. And rain should be out of the state by about 4 to 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Storms will come out, and our temperatures are going to literally fall off a cliff by this time as well. Here we are at 3 p.m. Northwest Indiana, northern Indiana, you're in the 30s, while southern Indiana, central Indiana, your temperatures are falling from the 70s and 60s into the 40s. And look at our wind chills tomorrow afternoon as well. We have heat index in southern Indiana and wind chills into the 20s in northern Indiana. It's just going to be that type of day tomorrow. It's not going to be fun. And then by tomorrow night, all of Indiana will feel like we're in the 20s by tomorrow night. So quite a cold front moving through, and this cold front is largely responsible for our severe weather this afternoon and into tomorrow. But all of Indiana is at risk for severe weather here today. You notice we go from a marginal risk to a moderate risk from northern Indiana to southern Indiana. The entire state of Indiana is at least in some risk for severe weather here today. Best timing after 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time for severe storms. Severe storms could fire anytime after that time. The greatest window for seeing our supercell potential, our greatest hail potential, and tornado potential will exist between 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, through about 1 a.m. Eastern, midnight Central here this evening for areas in orange and red. This is when our storms are expected to remain isolated. The longer they remain isolated, the longer window we have for significant hail and perhaps a strong tornado or two across northern Indiana. Go ahead and show you that one more time. So the longer these storms remain isolated, the longer our hail risk and tornado risk will persist across northern Indiana. Greatest risk for tornadoes, though, is in northwest Indiana, where our storms remain isolated. The longer they're by themselves, the greater chances they have to produce significant hail, damaging winds, and a tornado or two. And a strong tornado is also possible across northern Indiana and northern Illinois. EF2 or greater tornado, we do have those parameters in place here today. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but the risk is there. We do have those ingredients today. The atmosphere is rapidly destabilizing as we speak. I expect a tornado watch to be issued probably here later this afternoon or early this evening, depending on how radar trends and data trends here this evening. There is an unchance we'll have to see what kind of a tornado watch we get as well. There is a chance we may see a PDS watch too. Definitely not out of the question. We'll just have to see how data trends here. We have great eyes looking at our region here tonight across the board from the National Weather Service, offices here in Indiana and Illinois, as well as the great men and women working hard and diligently in Norman, Oklahoma at the Storm Prediction Center. So multiple eyes have your back. Please heed all warnings that are issued tonight across northern Indiana and northern Illinois. Please react. Don't leave it up to chance. Please react when a warning is issued tonight, as we could have significant severe weather across northern Indiana and northern Illinois. We'll be live here later this evening to cover severe weather in detail from beginning to end from northern Indiana and all the way. Likely we'll be live all night and into tomorrow. We got you covered here from beginning to end. And if you do have any storm damage, please feel free to reach out to Rutgers Outdoor Services, based in Indianapolis. They'll be happy to give you help you out there with that. Give them a call, 317-665-3969. Thank you to Rutgers Outdoor Services for sponsoring our severe weather briefing here today. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and go over our risks one more time here before we pop off. And one thing that we do need to talk about is sheltering for severe weather. There are good options and then there are bad options. The worst options that you can be in for severe weather: mobile homes, vehicles, under an overpass. Please do not park under an overpass if you are in a severe thunderstorm. That is a very terrible idea. Not only do you block the roadways for emergency vehicles and other motorists on the roadways, but you put yourself at greater risk underneath those things, as the wind and hazards are amplified underneath overpasses. So please do not do that. Outdoors, terrible idea. If you hear storm sirens go off, you have an alert on your phone. If you're outside, please find a nearest storm shelter or sturdy structure to go in and wait the storm out. Campers, if anybody's camping here this week, it's really nice outside. Wouldn't be surprised to see a few campers out at the campgrounds. Please know where your local storm shelter is at those facilities and heed there if you find yourself in a tornado or severe thunderstorm warning. Best options: interior room on the lowest level of your home, of a well-built structure or a basement. Think of it like this: put as many layers between you and what's going on outside. That's the best way to think of it. The more layers you have of protection between you and what's going on outside, the better chances you have of being okay when a tornado strikes or severe weather strikes. That is why we practiced our statewide tornado drill here this morning, to practice this very thing, knowing where your safe place is. That way you can react and go there automatically when a tornado or severe thunderstorm warning is issued. We do expect to see a couple of those here this afternoon. Always as best options: above or below ground tornado storm shelter, NSSA ICC 500 compliant, or FEMA safe room. Many of us don't have those though, so the best thing we can do: know where your safe place is and make sure it's a predetermined place. So if you live in like a prefabricated home or mobile home, camper, know where that safe place is. It can be a neighbor that has a house that's well-built structure or a storm shelter nearby. Have those places in your mind. That way, if a warning does come, you can get to those places before it's too late. So always make sure you have a plan of action and you're ready to react and when the time comes. Greatest risk for tornadoes today: northern Indiana, highlighted in red here. This is our in-house forecast. Greatest risk would be along and south of our warm front. So depending where our warm front sets up, if it is near the Indiana state line, areas along and south of that would be at risk. If it shifts a little bit further south, the tornado risk would shift a little bit south with it as well. But the highest area would be in areas in red and a little bit lower non-zero, but lower as we go into southern Indiana. And this is because our storms change. We go from isolated supercells into kind of a messy complex or a line of storms. This would shift the risks a little bit from tornadoes to damaging winds and hail, with the possibility of a spin up tornado into tomorrow morning. So, with that being said, all of Indiana is at risk for severe weather here today. So, please have a way to receive warnings when warnings are issued. We do have this tornado driven moderate risk across northern Indiana and northern Illinois. This is a level 4 out of 5. So, keep it here. We will be live here later this evening, probably soon as storms get pretty close to coming into Indiana. We will go live and we will have you covered from beginning to end in totality tonight across the state of Indiana. So, with that being said, stay weather aware tonight, stay vigilant, have a way to receive warnings. It could be potentially a dangerous night across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana. We got you covered. Stay tuned to Indiana Weather Online, Indiana Weather Network.